Good morning, Allison.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing quite well. Yourself?
Just fine, thank you.
Good morning. Can anyone hear me? We're just checking from EPE witness room.
I can hear you, Linda.
Oh, thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. I have 9 o'clock on my cell phones. Allison, are we ready to begin? All right, getting the thumbs up from Allison. Let's go on the record. We are here for a hearing in case number 23-00071 UT in the matter of the tariffs, agreements, and forms proposed by qualifying utilities for the community solar program. Today is Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023. My name is Hans Muller. I will be the hearing examiner to preside over today's hearing. The parties to this matter submitted an uncontested Phase 1 stipulation on August 10, 2023, which will be the subject of today's hearing. Under Section 1.2.2.20A3 NMAC, the proponents of the stipulation have the burden of supporting the stipulation with sufficient evidence and legal argument to allow the commission to approve it. Let's go ahead and get appearances on the record. First, for commission staff.
David Black for commission staff, the advocacy staff, not the advisory staff, the staff for the utility division staff.
Thank you, David. For SPS.
Good morning, Mr. Examiner. Dana Hardy and Ms. Stephanie Hool for SPS.
Thank you. PNM.
Good morning, Mr. Hearing Examiner. John Verhule on behalf of Public Service Company of New Mexico.
Good morning, John. EPE.
Good morning, hearing examiner and colleagues. Nancy Burns on behalf of El Paso Electric Company.
Thank you, Nancy. REIA.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hearing Examiner. This is Jason Marks appearing for Renewable Energy Industries Association of New Mexico, REIA.
Thank you, Jason. CCSA.
Good morning, Mr. Hearing Examiner and parties. Jake Schlesinger with the law firm of Keys and Fox on behalf of the Coalition for Community Solar Access. I'm also joined today with local counsel Joseph Yar.
Good morning. Okay. There is one official transcript of this proceeding. That is the transcript produced by our court reporter. She will supply that transcript to the commission and it will be maintained on eDocket. It is the only official transcript. No party is authorized to record this proceeding. Our court reporter will also collect the exhibits from the parties and transmit them to the commission as the official record of exhibits admitted during this hearing. I gave everyone directions about exchanging exhibits utilizing Dropbox. And from what I reviewed, it appears everyone accomplished that. SPS entered the Phase 1 stipulation and exhibits marked 1 through 6. PNM entered exhibits 1 through 5. EPE entered exhibits 1 through 5. CCSA entered exhibits 1 through 2. REIA entered exhibit 1. And staff entered exhibits 1 through 3 in my Dropbox folder right now. As this is an uncontested stipulation, I assume the parties are in agreement as to the admissibility of the exhibits uploaded. So for efficiency of the record, are we in agreement that the exhibits listed in Dropbox can be entered onto the record? And I'm not going to do roll call. I'll just, if there's an objection, please state it now.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, this is not an objection, but this is Anastasia Stevens on behalf of the City of Las Cruces, and I'd like to enter my appearance on the record. We're a signatory to the stipulation who did not file testimony.
Okay, thank you, Anastasia. Sorry for skipping over. Good to have you with us this morning.
And Mr. Hearing Examiner, this is Jane Yee on behalf of New Mexico People's Energy Co-op.
We are a non-signatory, however, we do not oppose the stipulation.
Okay, thank you, Jane.
And good morning.
Good
Mr.
morning.
Hearing Examiner and parties.
Okay. Now that we've gotten the extra appearances, hearing no objection, I am going to admit exhibits SPS 1 through 6, PNM 1 through 5, EPE 1 through 5, CCSA 1 and 2, REIA 1, and staff 1 through 3 are admitted into the record. During presentation of the witnesses, the hearing examiner may have questions on the exhibits admitted as if they were admitted on direct examination. And it looks like we have all the parties in attendance today and no one has failed to appear. We'll
Mr.
go
Hearing
for-
Examiner,
Yes, David.
for staff exhibit 1, there were some minor changes. I just wanted to put it on the record. The word, where is it here? The word unanimous stipulation was used throughout. It should be changed to, wherever that appears, should be changed to uncontested stipulation throughout.
Okay, I am seeing that on the exhibit.
And if you want me to go
And
through
we'll
page
note-
and
and note
line,
that
I can
accordingly.
do that.
I don't think that'll be necessary. I think we can just take the audible correction and replace that word with uncontested. That's fine.
Thank you.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, if corrections are appropriate at this time, I have a small one from PNM.
Okay. Which exhibit are you referring to, Mr. Verhall?
PNM exhibit number 5 on page 8 of the exhibit, which is page 6 of the testimony.
Okay.
On line 7, there's a citation to what is written as 19.9.573.13 NMAC, and the first 2 digits of that citation should be 17.
Note that. Okay, any other corrections, Mr. Verhall?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go for an hour and a half this morning and take a 10-minute break. Lunch will be from noon to 1, and we will wrap up no later than 5 o'clock. To the extent this in any way interferes with the complete presentation, we will have another day of hearing. This is principally for our court reporter so that she has time to rest during the day. And if we go, we'll probably take another break in the afternoon as well if we do proceed later into the afternoon. Let the court reporter, obviously, Allison, please feel free to interject at any time and direct people to either slow down or adjust their audio so you can hear appropriately. The presentation of evidence in this case then would follow 1.2.233 NMAC, which, as the presentation is on a stipulation today, is at the discretion of the presiding officer. I'm going to follow the presentation of an application as a basis today, which is consistent with what I received from the parties. So basically, proponents of the stipulation first, then interveners, followed by commission staff and any rebuttal, if any is needed. I received a proposed order from the parties, which is consistent with the proposed presentation. So I will just review the proposed order of witnesses. that I received. We'll start off with SPS and 3 witnesses there. And then we have Public Service of New Mexico witnesses, El Paso Electric, Renewable Energy Industries Association, REIA, Coalition of Community Solar Access, CCSA, and Utility Division staff. And I have noted that we made an asterisk for Mr. Cray. The indication would he would be available after 1 p.m. today. Is that still consistent, or has anything arisen since yesterday where I might need to adjust the order of those witnesses?
No, Mr. Hearing Examiner, that is still the case for CCSA.
Okay.
Mr. Mueller,
Yes, Ms. Marks.
given that this is an uncontested stipulation, the parties don't anticipate any cross examination of any of the witnesses unless there is some matter that comes up and cross from the bench, or excuse me, examination from the bench. Would you be able to advise us whether you have planned examination for all of these witnesses, or if we could let some of these witnesses know that they won't need to be called?
As of right, I would not anticipate a lot of direct examination, assuming I'm sure everyone is aware what I kind of need to hear today regarding the acceptance of a stipulation. So to the I do not have much in-depth direct examination to do, and I am also I was not aware if a commissioner was going to be joining us today. I see that I do not see a commissioner in attendance, so I would anticipate this to go in a fairly expeditious manner, if that answers your question.
Not directly, but it does.
Yeah, I do not. I really do not anticipate having much direct examination, considering it's an uncontested stipulation. That being said, if we wrap up before lunchtime today, I will kind of review if Mr. Cray's testimony after 1 o'clock will be necessary.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That being said, the commission's initial order in this matter vested the hearing examiners with authority to conduct any necessary hearings and to take any actions consistent with commission procedure. Under section 62-6-4 NMSA 1978, the commission, and by extension through the delegation of powers, the hearing examiners also exercise broad power to supervise and regulate utilities in order to protect utility ratepayers and ensure the utility provides reasonable and proper service at fair, just, and reasonable rates. To the extent that the hearing examiner asks additional inquiries during this proceeding is consistent with the delegation of that authority and practice of the commission. The scope of any redirect is matters arising from any examination by the hearing examiner, and recross will be limited to matters arising from redirect. The basic import of these rules is to ensure orderly questioning. Public comment, there is no public comment today. My understanding is that will be held separately through a separate hearing through the Office of General Counsel. So there is no public comment today. I don't believe we have any pending motions. Does anyone have anything else before we begin receiving evidence today?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, I may regret this, but my recollection is that SPS had a motion to strike our pre-stipulation testimony of Jim Desjardins that appears to, and I believe has been mooted by the stipulation, but it may be better for the record to get that loose end tied up.
All right, thank you. Give me 1 second so I can review that.
And I think you will have basically denied that motion by admitting our exhibit.
But Mr. Marks, I'm reviewing the docket.
The motion,
When was that motion filed?
I've got a date of July 12th for the file, so sometime around then.
Okay.
Yes, July 12th.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, the motion in question asks me to strike the Desjardins rebuttal, as it is not rebuttal testimony, but rather untimely direct testimony that should have been filed as part of REIA's case in chief, and is unnecessarily cumulative of the direct testimony of CCSA witness Kevin Cray. Mr. Marks is correct. I am going to deny the motion to strike, as everything has been admitted onto the record. That being said, the hearing examiner will obviously give light. We'll take the testimony in consideration, give it the appropriate weight based upon the full evidence presented, but the motion to strike is denied. Any other matters?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, Nancy Burns with EPE. We also have Daniel Goldberg making an appearance for EPE, and I failed to introduce him when we started.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Daniel.
Morning.
Okay, let's begin with the order of witnesses. SPS, you have your first 3 witnesses, and I did supply our court reporter with the list of witnesses, so we don't need to go through the spell your name for the record. For each witness, the court reporter will swear in each witness individually. So SPS, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. SPS calls its first witness, Miss Zoe Lees. And with the understanding that Miss Lees' direct rebuttal and stipulation testimony have been admitted into the record, I don't have any questions for her, so she's available for questions from Your Honor.
Miss Lees, would you raise your right hand, please? Would the testimony you're about to give, do you solemnly swear it will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Just give me 1 minute here to pull up Ms. Lee's statement. Ms. Lees, and this will kind of be the template for witnesses moving forward for everybody. I do see on regarding your phase 1 testimony in support of the uncontested phase 1 stipulation on page 20 regarding if the phase 1 stipulation satisfies the 3 criteria for a stipulation. Could you elaborate for me as to how the settlement as a whole benefits the public interest?
Yes, Your Honor. And good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
How it satisfies the public interest, Your Honor, I'm going to direct you to page 25 of my testimony in support of phase 1 stipulation. Section 6 discusses how the stipulation as a whole benefits the public interest and does not violate any important regulatory principle or practice. First of all, Your Honor, on page 20, I'll just direct you. In general, the settlement supports the establishment of a community solar subscriber organization agreement and as the framework that protects the rights of both the subscriber organization and the utility for which the project is interconnecting. And it enables the expansion of solar energy adoption in the state of New Mexico, as is consistent with the Community Solar Act and the Commission's rules. The stipulation also serves the public interest, Your Honor, as it ensures that the utility will receive the necessary information to calculate accurate bill credits on behalf of the customers that are subscribing to these community solar projects, and that the project interconnected with SPS is operating safely, complies with applicable laws, and that there's a framework in place for the parties to resolve any non-compliance issues or disputes.
And if the commission were not to approve the stipulation, what would the consequences of that action be?
If the commission chose to reject the stipulation in this case, the commission would then need to decide on the litigated posture of the case as presented in the direct and rebuttal testimony of the parties.
Okay, thank you. No further questions. SPS, do you want a redirect on that?
No, I don't have any redirect, Mr. Examiner. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This witness can be dismissed. Oops.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Next witness.
Mr. Examiner, Ms. Hool is going to present SPS's next witnesses.
Examiner. We have Martin Ilesco, who has testified on direct and rebuttal, and those testimonies have been admitted as exhibits 3 and 4. I don't have any questions for Mr. Ilesco, so I would tender him for any questions you may have.
Okay, and I just let him in from the waiting room. So Allison, can you go ahead and swear him in?
Sir, would you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, could you pronounce your, Martin, can you pronounce your last name for me?
Yes, sir. It's Mr. Lichko.
Lichko. Okay, thank you. Beyond the testimony that has been submitted, could you briefly describe your involvement with the stipulation?
With the stipulation itself, I was not directly involved in that. I am the program manager for the New Mexico SPS solar interconnection process. So I manage the application process from end to end. I'm not quite sure how to answer my involvement in the direct stipulation. So
Just establishing on the record. Have you reviewed the stipulation?
I've reviewed my testimony and worked with our internal legal counsel.
Okay. Okay, based upon the testimony that has been presented already onto the record, I have no further questions for Mr. Lichko.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, we have one more witness,
Okay, that would be Mr.
Mr. Gardner.
Is Mr. Gardner present?
He's coming in right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Gardner, this is the stenographer. Would you raise your right hand for me, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, Mr. Gardner submitted rebuttal testimony in this case, which has been admitted as hearing exhibit number 5. There's no questions for Mr. Gardner from SPS, so I would tender him for any questions you may have.
Okay. I reviewed Mr. Gardner's rebuttal testimony, and I do not have any further questions for Mr. Gardner at this time. That being said, thank you for thank you for making yourself available this morning, but the witness can be dismissed.
Thank you all. Have a good morning.
SPS, that concludes our witnesses for today. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Examiner, it does.
Okay. Next in the order of witnesses, we have Public Service of New Mexico. So please present your first witness.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, I apologize. In our witness room, we're getting that laptop connected to the meeting right now. So our first witness will be Alaric Babe, but he may be a minute.
Okay. That's fine. I think we're ahead of schedule anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, he should be popping up for you to admit him any second now, and then we'll proceed.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, while we wait, could I just clarify that the stipulation exhibit was admitted into the record when you previously admitted all of the parties' hearing exhibits? I may have missed it. I know you acknowledged it was submitted, but I'm not sure if I heard you admit it to the record if that's necessary.
Okay, thank you. I'll make sure state that for the record that beyond the list of exhibits that the SPS had submitted the proposed stipulation as part of their documents, which I will also admit onto the record as part of what I initially admitted onto the record initially. So the stipulation is admitted into evidence. Now, Mr. Verhall, I did just admit somebody that only had a category of witness. So you might have to, without a name attached to it. So you might have to direct me if the individual who is listed as witness right there is in fact Mr. Babbage.
It is. That is PNM's first witness, Mr. Alaric Babe.
Okay.
Mr. Babe submitted direct testimony in this matter, which is PNM Exhibit number 1. He submitted rebuttal testimony, which is PNM Exhibit number 2, and he also provided direct testimony in support of the stipulation, which is PNM Exhibit number 5.
Okay.
And with that, I would tender Mr. Babe to any questions you may have.
Okay, Allison, can you swear Mr. Babe in, please?
Mr. Babe, would you raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Babe, you probably are aware that your testimony has been submitted onto evidence. I'm noting on your testimony in support of the stipulation, which is PNM Exhibit number 5. in pages 7 and 8 and 9, you list the changes that were made to the agreement and P&M's stipulation to the change. Could you briefly highlight for me the changes that P&M agreed to? I know they're on the record as part of your stipulation. Could you just highlight that some of the changes that P&M agreed to for purposes of this stipulation?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd be happy to. So reviewing pages 7, 8, and 9 of my direct testimony in support of the stipulation, many of these agreements were to streamline the subscriber organization agreement and make it easier for both the subscriber organizations as well as the utilities for reasons of clarification. Let's see, high level here. So for example, if you look at page 8, section 6.4, there was some language that P&M had in the original agreement that would have limited participation in the community solar program. P&M did agree to remove that language as part of this agreement. However, we might address some of this in phase 2 of this proceeding, but we did agree that it did not need to be part of the agreement between the utility and the subscriber organization. Moving on to page 9, line 7, referring to section 7.3. This had to do with access or inspection of the solar facility. Often there's not people on site, and so we did say that if the utility were to provide reasonable notice, then access could be granted. It wouldn't just be at any time. Access would need to be granted without notice. Let's see, trying to hit some other high level. So another one on the same page, page 9, if you go down to lines 14 through 19, this had to do with operation and replacement of the facility. Originally in the agreement, this was solely the responsibility of the subscriber organization. Clarifications were made based on ownership of the equipment, whether it is owned by P&M or the other utility or the subscriber organization, that would be the responsible party. So trying to add some clarification and also provide some of that clarity on these 25-year agreements, who's responsible for what, while at the same time streamlining and putting off some of those issues to phase 2 that maybe would not help move this phase forward.
Thank you for that. And on page 20 of your testimony in support of the stipulation, you describe how the stipulation is in the public interest since it moves this program forward efficiently. Could you just give me some context as to if the commission did not approve the stipulation, what would be the impact on the community solar program?
So the possible impact, and this is just my thought, the possible impact of the program, as Ms. Lee's already stated, would be that we would have to fall back onto direct and rebuttal testimony in the case and possibly go forward with a litigated hearing. This could further delay full implementation of the program, and I think that could increase timelines. And if we were to walk this all the way through to the end, could possibly lead to subscribers receiving the benefits of their subscriptions at a later date than it would be without approving the stipulation.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions for you. Witness may be dismissed.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, PNM calls its second witness, Mr. Jeremy Heslop. And I see Mr. Heslop is there. His camera is on. Mr. Heslop submitted direct testimony in this matter, which is PNM Exhibit number 3, and he submitted rebuttal testimony, which is PNM Exhibit number 4. And with that, I would tender him to be sworn in and for any questions you have.
Mr. Heslop, would you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And having Mr. Heslop sworn in, his testimony being admitted into evidence, I do not have any further questions for Mr. Heslop at this time, having reviewed both evidence that has been submitted onto the record in PNM's Exhibit number 3 and 4. So I do not have any further inquiries for Mr. Heslop.
Thank you.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, that concludes PNM's witnesses.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Verhall. El Paso Electric.
Good morning again, Mr. Hearing Examiner. EPE calls its first witness, Mr. Jim Schiestel. Mr. Schiestel has 3 sets of testimony that were marked and admitted into evidence. Exhibit 5 is EP Exhibit 5 is Schiestel's testimony in support of the stipulation. And we also have EP Exhibit 1, Mr. Schiestel's direct testimony, and Exhibit 2, Mr. Schiestel's rebuttal testimony. I have no questions for Mr. Schiestel, so I will pass him to be sworn in and for any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Sir, would you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
My apologies. We have 2 mute buttons.
No problem. My line of questioning will be similar to previous witnesses in regards to your testimony in support of the stipulation. Could you give me, that being said, you are being sworn in and your testimony being admitted into evidence. Could you give me, in your view, a high-level view of what EPE, what concessions were made by EPE in regards to the stipulation that has been presented today?
Certainly. I think I would summarize ours as working towards a simplification for the uniform agreement. I think we accomplished that along with the other parties and the utilities, whether it was language or simplifying some of the interactions and arrangements with subscriber organizations, to the point of the uniform agreement is substantially agreeable to EPE, and we have very few red line changes to the uniform agreement, really in a single section. I think it's on page 9 of Exhibit D in Section 7, where we reserved for a later date any requirements around operations and maintenance on the facilities. But otherwise, I think that our efforts on the uniform agreement really had to do with, as I said, simplification and some of the other things that the other utilities have identified in terms of things that were changed from the some of the original agreements.
Okay, and I don't see, and is it your opinion then, I'm looking through, your opinion then that the commission approving the stipulation is in the public interest?
I would say yes, absolutely. I think that it does. In addition to what our other utilities have mentioned, certainly in terms of, not prolonging this particular in phase one, allowing us to move to phase two, which really, is an area where it gets to more to the nuts and bolts of the community solar program. I think what we heard from the parties representing the subscriber organization side of this is the need to have a more straightforward and clear contractual arrangements around subscriber organizations, as well as uniformity. I think I appreciate from the perspective of groups that may have community solar facilities in more than one utility. It's nice to have an agreement that is pretty consistent across, your various community solar facilities as a subscriber organization. So I think that's really beneficial. And so I think that will translate into a better program for our customers and subscribers. And so I would wholeheartedly agree that this is a good outcome for both the subscriber organizations, the utilities, and subscribers.
Yeah. All right. Having reviewed the testimony submitted by EPE, I have no further questions for Mr. Scheidel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
EPE will call its next witness, Dave Hawkins. And Mr. Hawkins's direct testimony is marked as EP Exhibit 3. He also filed rebuttal testimony. It's marked as EP Exhibit 4. Both those testimonies have already been admitted into the record as evidence. I have no questions for Mr. Hawkins, so I will make him available to be sworn in and for any questions from the hearing examiner.
Mr. Hawkins, would you raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hawkins has been sworn in, and both testimonies submitted by EPE have been entered onto the record. Having reviewed both the direct and rebuttal testimony of Mr. Hawkins, I do not have any further questions regarding his testimony. So I appreciate you making yourself available today, Mr. Hawkins, but the witness may be dismissed.
Thank you.
EP has no other witnesses, Mr. Hearing Examiner.
Thank you. In the proposed witnesses, REIA would be next with Jim Desjardins.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, hopefully Mr. Desjardins is in the waiting room.
Let me see. There he is. All right, he should be connecting with us momentarily here.
I see his. There he is. Thank you. REIA calls Jim Desjardins to the stand and would ask that the court reporter swear him in.
Mr. Desjardins, would you raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And Mr. Hearing Examiner, Mr. Desjardins filed rebuttal testimony, which has been admitted as REIA Exhibit 1.
Okay. Mr. Desjardins has been sworn in, and the rebuttal testimony filed as Exhibit 1 is entered onto the record. Just give me 1 minute to catch up with my notes here.
I apologize. A plane just flew over my house. I didn't hear the question.
Oh, no question. I was just stating that he has been sworn in, and the rebuttal testimony submitted by him has been entered on the record. I'm catching up with my notes here since we're moving quite expeditiously. Let me just give me a minute to review. Mr. Marks, help me understand real quickly on Mr. Desjardins' rebuttal testimony. Is the rebuttal testimony particularly in line with modifications on page 4? Does that go toward the stipulation that is approval, or are these requests for modification of the stipulation agreement?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, these predate the stipulation, and if Your Honor would grant leave, I could ask Mr. Desjardins a couple of questions on direct to clarify that.
Please do, just so we can have that clarified on the record.
Thank you. Mr. Desjardins, can you just state your name and your job title?
My name is Jim Desjardins, and I'm the Executive Director of the Renewable Energy Industries Association of New Mexico. I believe we're in the record as our acronym REIA, R-E-I-A.
Okay. And do you recall that you filed testimony that was called rebuttal testimony prior to the parties coming to a stipulation?
I do recall that.
Okay. And did you participate in the discussions and negotiations that led to the stipulation that has now been filed?
I did participate mainly as an observer, but I was present during most of the stipulation.
Okay. And you communicated with certain parties about your interest in that?
I did.
Okay. And are you familiar with the resulting stipulation?
I am familiar with it.
And do you believe that the stipulation resolves the concerns that you stated in your file testimony as a reasonable compromise?
I do believe it resolves the concerns and is a reasonable compromise.
With that, I would pass the witness.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Desjardins, as you testified that your concerns were a reasonable compromise and what has been put forth in the stipulation, is it your opinion that the stipulation presented for approval is in the public interest?
I do believe the stipulation is in the public interest, yes.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Desjardins.
Thank you. REIA has no further witnesses and
okay. Let me just take a look. Obviously, we had Mr. Cray scheduled to be the next witness from Coalition of Community Solar Access. However, of course, it is not even 10 o'clock right now. Utility Division staff, are the witnesses, Mr. Dunn and Mr. Sidler, available at this time?
Yes, Mr. Hearing Examiner, I believe Mr. Dunn, I saw him on this screen earlier. And I have been in communication with Mr. Sidler, and he is prepared. He's watching on YouTube, and he's prepared to join us.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and take the testimony of Mr. Dunn.
All right, let's see. Do you have, I can't see all, oh, there's, there he is. Good morning, Christopher Dunn. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Mr. Hearing Examiner, Christopher Dunn submitted testimony in support of the stipulation, as well as direct testimony back in July. And so those are, I believe, are exhibits 1. The stipulation testimony is staff exhibit 1, and the direct testimony is staff exhibit number 2. Having admitted those exhibits prepared by Mr. Dunn with minor changes to the word unopposed, excuse me, what was it?
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Yeah.
I offer Mr. Dunn for any questioning of the hearing examiner. Oh, also he needs to be sworn, I believe.
Yes, that was
okay.
Allison, go ahead.
Mr. Dunn, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Dunn, I'm going to focus once again on your testimony in support of the stipulation. Let me just get the page number here. on page 20 and 21, you describe how the stipulation benefits the public interest. Can you just tell me, you indicate staff believes that the stipulation will support the implementation of the community solar program. Can you just give me a little clarification there as to how approval of the stipulation would benefit the community solar program for the public interest?
Yeah, absolutely. So in short, I generally agree with what's been said by the parties before me, but to kind of summarize it, I think that the stipulation will allow for the commission to avoid extended process that would go through litigation to decide any of the issues that were instead decided in the stipulation. Thereby, it should enable more expedient implementation of the community solar program. That should allow for participation of utility customers into the community solar program, thereby recognizing the benefits intended by the legislature and creation of the Community Solar Act. The stipulation further also details the relationship between the utilities and the subscriber organizations, articulating certain requirements, offering certain protections, and detailing how any disputes might be resolved to, again, promote the furtherance of the community solar program and its implementation. And it also supports utility customers participating in a way that they are able to understand really what their participation looks like and how they are going to recognize benefits from the community solar program. So in summation, I believe that these things together benefit the implementation and the recognition of benefits through the community solar program in a way that benefits the public interest.
Okay, thank you. And if the commission were to not approve the stipulation, what would be the impact upon phase 2? Are there any benchmarks that would be impacted by phase 2, or what would be the delay for the process of phase 2?
The phase 2 issues are separated out and distinct from largely the phase 1 issues. So I believe that if the commission were to not approve the stipulation, then phase 2 could go forward, but it might be impacted in some ways because of the delays in phase 1. For example, certain issues were resolved in the stipulation, such as language around customers who might or might not qualify for participation in community solar. So if you were to push off the stipulation and it was not approved by the commission, it may slightly impact phase 2 proceedings, but I think that largely the phase 1 issues and the phase 2 issues are distinct from one another.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Dunn at this time. And admitting Mr. Sidler. So if there is no Mr. Black, if there is no redirect for Mr. Dunn, the witness can be dismissed.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think Mr. Sidler should be available, Mr. Black.
Good morning, Jack. It appears your microphone is muted on this little Brady Bunch square thing. Zoom thing. Are you there, Jack? Let me try to get him on the phone. Yes. Okay. Okay, try to rejoin. Thanks. Mr. Hearing Examiner, Jack is having some technical difficulties. It's apparently not allowing him to join with the audio, but he's going to disconnect and try again.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. I'll kind of monitor, I will monitor if he attempts to rejoin, I'll monitor the waiting room, which I see right now. But let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and present his testimony. And we'll get him squared away in the interim. So we are going to go off it is 10:06. We'll go off the record and come back at 10:16.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. There was one more dummy box I had to click. Can you all hear me now?
We can, Jack. This is Hearing Examiner Mueller. I put everybody on a 10-minute break. We needed to take a break anyway. So we are going to start with your testimony when we go back on the record at 10:16.
Okay. Thank you.
Good deal, Jack. We'll see you then.
I have 10:16, so Allison, let's go back on the record. Mr. Black, go ahead and proceed with Mr. Sidler, please.
Good morning, Jack Sidler. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. We have already admitted into the record your prepared direct testimony. It's prepared direct testimony of Jack D. Sidler, 27 June 2023 as Staff Exhibit 3. Mr. Hearing Examiner, I offer a staff witness for your questioning.
Okay, Allison, can you go ahead and swear Mr. Sidler in, please?
Mr. Sidler, would you raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And having Mr. Sidler properly sworn in and his prepared direct testimony has been admitted onto the record. Having reviewed Mr. Sidler's testimony, I do not have any further questions for Mr. Sidler at this time. No other questions from hearing examiner. Mr. Black, witness can be dismissed.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Okay. That leaves us with Coalition of Community Solar Access's witness, Kevin Cray, who had indicated that he would be available after 1 o'clock. CCSA, how would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Your Honor. First off, our sincere apologies for this unavoidable conflict. Mr. Cray had a urgent medical issue with his daughter that he needed to attend to this morning. I guess my answer to your question is to turn it back to you at your pleasure. I don't have any direct questions for Mr. Cray. Our exhibits 1 and 2, his direct testimony and his testimony in support of the stipulation, have both been entered into evidence by Your Honor this morning. If no other parties have cross-examination and you have no questions for him, I would suggest or request that he be excused. That being said, he is available at 1 o'clock and we can reconvene then if you'd like to ask him questions. I will say I do expect that he will have agreed with much of the testimony that's already been provided this morning, just based on the conversations that I've had with him already.
Okay. At this point, this hearing examiner, while having already put his testimony onto the record, I'm somewhat reluctant since we haven't sworn him in. That being said, I can give the testimony that has the prepared direct testimony the proper weight in light of all the other evidence that has been submitted today in making my decision and excusing the witness. But let me first ask the other parties, as Mr. Schlesinger pointed out. Is there any requested examination of that witness? Hearing none.
No, Your Honor, but I just want to note that Mr. Cray has attached to his testimony exhibit number, what is it? in support, exhibit number CCSA, exhibit number 2, the affirmation in lieu of affidavit in compliance with our rules of procedure, which refers to the court's rules of procedure that allows swearing, instead of swearing under oath, providing an affirmation to the truth of the information contained in the testimony. And on that basis, staff is confident that Mr. Cray has sworn to his testimony.
All right, thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Black. And yes, in Mr. Cray's, what is marked as CCA exhibit number 2, his testimony in support of the stipulation, I believe would go toward what Mr. Schlesinger was saying, that he recommends the hearing examiner commissioner find the stipulation is supported by sufficient evidence and recommends the stipulation as filed. With that, I really don't feel it's necessary to have Mr. Cray provide any further testimony this afternoon. I know we all have schedules to keep to, and we are probably looking forward to this not having 2 days of our week. So if there's no objection, as I indicated earlier, I am admitting both exhibits into the record as an alternative to the Mr. Cray's direct testimony being offered up this afternoon. So both exhibits are admitted in support of the stipulation. So I don't, the witness is excused from having to appear this afternoon.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That concludes the proposed list of witnesses for today. I believe, as I indicated, the proponents of the stipulation have the burden of supporting the stipulation with sufficient evidence and legal argument to allow the commission to approve that. This hearing examiner feels that the proponents of the stipulation have carried that burden today by the testimony and exhibits provided. It would be my recommendation to the commission that they support and approve the stipulation as provided. I'm trying to just look at my calendar real quick. I will try to make that recommendation within 15 days to the commission. If that is the recommendation of this hearing examiner is to approve the stipulation as provided, let me ask, will the parties, if that is the recommendation, will the parties waive? Sorry, coffee is just not good this morning. Will the parties waive exceptions to a recommendation to approve the stipulation? Staff?
Staff would waive. Thank you.
SPS?
Yes, Your Honor.
PNM?
Yes, Mr. Hearing Examiner.
EPE?
Yes.
REIA?
Yes.
And CCSA?
Yes, thank you.
Anastasia?
Yes, the city of, you saw that look on my face. Yes.
I was getting to you just
We'll waive.
and Jane Yee?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, People's Co-op waives. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The record will indicate that as long as the hearing examiner's recommendation is to approve the stipulation, the parties have waived exceptions. So that will hopefully get this in front of the commission for approval as efficiently as possible. I think all the parties are aware the commission has shifted to a bi-weekly schedule. So I will make it a priority to try to issue that recommended decision in short order. Or at least within 15 days of today's hearing. Any further questions from the parties?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, this is Anastasia Stevens. I do have a question. I know that the orders in this case from the commission were a little unusual, and it was something about completing the record by the, I forget, was it 28th or the 31st of this month? Is there anything that you or the rest of us need to do other than the court reporter to fulfill that requirement?
Let
It was so unusual.
Yeah, let me check with the hearing examiner that issued that order. And I will develop if there is any additional information that was requested in that order, I will clarify that in the subsequent order. I feel we have accomplished that, but I will put out an order addressing that just for clarification on the record, if that's sufficient with you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hearing Examiner.
Mr. Black.
Thank you. And I'm referring to the initial order that was filed in this case in March. In finding paragraph 38, I think on page 11 of that, the commission states no recommended decision and no certification of stipulation is required.
All right, I'm just catching up with that. Okay, I am seeing what you're referring to there. So were you making that comment in regard to Anastasia's comment, Mr. Black?
No, just that you had mentioned that you were going to issue a recommended decision. And so I was a bit confused. Just a recommendation to approve would be great.
Recommendation to approve, it would be the appropriate title. Apologies.
Okay, I'm sorry for
crisscrossing the two, but
thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any further questions? Hearing none. Thank you everyone for attending today, and I think this concludes the hearing. The court reporter will have the transcript from today's hearing available, and like I said, I will do my best to make that recommendation probably within 15 days of today's hearing. But I appreciate everyone's participation today. We are concluded.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Allison, did you need anything else from anybody?
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We are concluded.
Thank you.
Thank you.